All right. So the rule here for these things is that when you have a change in flux, if you lose flux, you always replace that flux, okay? If you gain flux, you oppose that change. And then the second thing you got to understand is in a square loop or a circular loop or something like that, right? What you do is, if to create flux out of the page, you go anti-clockwise. It's the same rule we use for finding the North Pole. If this is the North Pole, then the flux is coming out of the page inside that, right? And then if the current flows clockwise, okay, then that's into the page flux, inside the loop, and that's all we really care about, okay? So in this case, in this picture here, we are taking it from a region where there is magnetic field to a region where there's not. That loop is moving relative to these x's. That's what the picture is supposed to show, right? So we are losing flux into the page. And if we lose flux into the page, of course, we replace it. So this is going to go clockwise, because clockwise creates flux into the page, okay? Let's try the next one here. Okay, so here a loop is being pushed into a region where there's an out-of-the-page magnetic field, right? And so we are gaining flux out of the page. And the way you react to that is, of course, you oppose the gain of flux. So this is going to be, to oppose that, we would create flux into the page. And that's why the current would go clockwise. That's the answer right there. Okay? Let's look at the next one here. Okay, here a loop is being put into a region where there is into the page magnetic field, right? So we are gaining flux into the page, so we oppose that by creating flux out of the page. Right, so therefore it's going to go anti-clockwise. Okay? And then in the last one here, we are taking it from a region where there's out of the page flux into a region where there's not. So we're losing flux out of the page, and so what we do is we replace that flux by going anti-clockwise. That's the answer there. All right, let's see. I'm having a hard time scrolling. Okay, let's see. Oh, what did it just do? I don't have no idea. Okay, I think this is the next line down, but I can never be sure. Okay, so here it's being, a loop is being put into a region where there's flux into the page. So we're gaining flux into the page, so we oppose that by creating flux out of the page, and it's anti-clockwise. Here we are losing flux into the page, right? Because we're going from here to a region where there's no magnetic field, right? So if you lose flux into the page, you create flux into the page. So I go this way to create flux into that page. Okay. Here I'm losing flux out of the page, so I create flux out of the page. It's anti-clockwise. And in the last one, I'm gaining flux out of the page, and I don't like that. I don't like that flux out of the page, right? So I create flux into the page. I'm going to go clockwise on that. All right. Let's see if I can scroll down. Oh, it kind of jumps there. I just don't even know if this is the next one, but I'm just going to do it. Okay. So here we're moving from a region where there's no magnetic field to a place where there is, and we're gaining flux out of the page. So therefore we create flux into the page. We oppose that, right? If you gain it, you oppose it. All right, there we go. Here we're losing flux because we're going to go from where there's a magnetic field to where there's not. We're losing flux into the page, so we create flux into the page. Okay, let me move that over. I'm not sure you can see that. Can you see that? Oh, you can. That's good. Okay, so this guy, we're losing flux into the page, so we create flux into the page, so therefore clockwise. Here we are losing flux out of the page because it's going to go from the nice magnetic field out of it, right? That's what this implies. And so we create flux out of the page. Here we're going from where there's no magnetic field to where there is a magnetic field. And so we are gaining flux into the page. So what we do is we oppose that. We create flux out of the page to oppose the flux into the page. Alrighty.